The Liaoning, the People's Republic of China's first carrier strike platform in history, crossed the Taiwan Strait in combat formation. Not as a pre-announced exercise staged for diplomatic consumption, not as a logistical transit toward the Western Pacific. The 67,000-ton vessel cut through the 180 kilometers of water separating mainland China from Taiwan, escorted by at least 6 warships, 2 Type 052D destroyers, 2 Type 054A frigates, an attack submarine, and a replenishment ship. While J-15B fighters launched from its deck on combat air patrols over waters that Beijing considers sovereign territory and Taipei considers its final line of survival. 180 kilometers, the width of the Taiwan Strait at the point where the Liaoning strike group made its crossing. To put that number in concrete terms, it is less than the distance between São Paulo and Campinas, less than the drive millions of Brazilians make by car in just over an hour. It is within that strip of water, narrow enough for radars on both sides to track every move the adversary makes in real time, that the most delicate military balance on the planet had just been broken in an unprecedented way. Taipei activated its highest level of air and naval defense alert in under 40 minutes from the moment the strike group was detected. And the central paradox of this crossing was as sharp as the warheads on the anti-ship missiles Taiwan moved into position in response. By transiting the strait for the first time with an aircraft carrier, Beijing intended to demonstrate strength, but what it simultaneously demonstrated was the vulnerability of the Liaoning itself. In a moment, you will understand why that detail changes the nature of this crisis entirely. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense, in a statement broadcast live on state television, confirmed that 26 Chinese military aircraft had crossed the strait's median line in the 24 hours preceding the carrier's passage, the highest number recorded in a single operational cycle since the missile crisis of 1995 and 1996. But there was a layer we had not yet reached, and it changes the nature of this analysis completely. That crisis 3 decades ago was triggered by ballistic missile exercises fired into exclusion zones around the island. This time, Beijing did not fire missiles. It did something that analysts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington considered potentially more dangerous. It normalized the presence of a carrier strike group inside the strait, transforming what had previously been a tacit red line into an operational patrol route. The cost of that normalization was measurable. A single day of Liaoning strike group operations, fuel, J-15 flight hours, standby munitions, logistical wear on escort vessels, consumes approximately $12 million, according to estimates from the International Institute for Strategic Studies in London. $12 million per day is more than the annual defense budget of 37 African countries individually. The People's Liberation Army Navy was prepared to burn that figure daily to create a fait accompli, the routine presence of Chinese naval air power in the waters separating Taiwan from the mainland. Step back for a moment and take in the full picture. The Liaoning is not China's most advanced carrier. It is the first, a platform rebuilt from the unfinished hull of the Soviet Varyag, purchased from Ukraine in 1998 for $20 million, officially to be converted into a floating casino. Its launch system is a ski jump ramp that limits the takeoff weight of its fighters and therefore their operational range and weapons load. The Fujian, China's third carrier, equipped with electromagnetic catapults comparable to those on American supercarriers, is still in sea trials. The decision to use the Liaoning, rather than wait for the Fujian, revealed political urgency, not military superiority. The equation had shifted. And here lay the paradox that planners had failed to calculate with the cold precision the operation demanded. By positioning the Liaoning inside the strait, Beijing had placed its most symbolically important naval asset within range of virtually every coastal defense system Taiwan possesses. The Xiongfeng III anti-ship missiles, domestically manufactured in Taiwan, carry an estimated operational range of 400 kilometers and supersonic velocity, more than sufficient to reach any point in the strait from mobile launchers concealed along the island's western coast. Taiwan's land-based missile batteries, the naval mine systems laid across the strait's seabed, and the dozens of fast attack craft in the Taiwanese Navy transform that strip of water into what naval warfare specialists call an anti-access area denial zone, a space where any large vessel becomes a target before it becomes a threat. Consider what this number means in practice. Taiwan maintains, according to reports from the United States Department of Defense, more than 500 anti-ship missiles positioned along its western coastline. 500 missiles against an aircraft carrier moving at 30 knots inside a 180-kilometer corridor. The arithmetic did not favor the symbol Beijing had chosen for its show of force. In the shadow of this monumental strategic miscalculation, one actor was watching everything with calculated satisfaction. And here was the actor that the headlines were not mentioning with the frequency the data warranted: Japan. Tokyo, which maintains its own territorial dispute with Beijing over the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea and depends on free transit through the Taiwan Strait for 40% of its energy imports, responded to the Liaoning's crossing with a speed without precedent in the post-war era. Japan's Prime Minister convened an emergency session of the National Security Council before Taipei had even issued its official statement. The Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force repositioned 2 Aegis-equipped destroyers to waters south of Okinawa, less than 600 kilometers from the northern entrance of the strait. Admiral Yamamoto Takeshi, commander of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, a 62-year-old graduate of the Etajima Naval Academy and a 30-year veteran of East China Sea patrols, issued no public statement. This officer is not the emotional protagonist of this analysis. He is the investigative coordinate of what the Liaoning's crossing detonated across the entire security architecture of the Western Pacific. But the true impact of this operation extended far beyond battlefield numbers. The economic dimension of the crisis revealed a calculation that Beijing appeared to have dangerously underestimated. The Taiwan Strait is the artery through which approximately 48% of the entire global container fleet and 28% of world maritime trade by value passes. Every hour of military tension in that corridor generates risk repricing at London's marine insurance markets, and the insurance premium for commercial vessels transiting the Taiwan Strait rose 17% in the first 6 hours after the Liaoning's crossing was confirmed. According to data from the Lloyd's Market Association, a 17% increase in maritime insurance costs translates directly into higher prices for every electronic component, every semiconductor, and every ton of raw material moving through that choke point. And here was what that layer revealed. Beijing, by staging a military show of force in the strait, was simultaneously inflating the supply chain costs of the very industrial economy that depends on those waters more than any other nation on Earth. In the most recent fiscal year, China imported semiconductors valued at $380 billion, and the majority of them transit precisely through the waters the Liaoning had just militarized. And the greatest paradox of the entire crisis resided precisely here. The weapon the regime had deployed to intimidate Taiwan was, in that very moment, corroding its own productive chain. Every day the Liaoning spent in the strait was another day of risk premium, another day of logistical cost, another day of pressure on Chinese manufacturers who depend on the predictability of that route. The historical analogy that captures this dynamic with the greatest precision is not the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, which television analysts had been repeating since the first hours. It is Napoleon's continental blockade against Great Britain between 1806 and 1814, a demonstration of economic and military force that, in attempting to strangle the adversary, ended up suffocating the very system sustaining it. Napoleon tried to sever British trade and destroyed the economies of his own continental allies. Beijing tried to demonstrate control over the strait and drove up the costs of its own industrial machine. The paradox had closed on itself. And then we arrive at the question no analyst was answering with sufficient clarity. Washington responded to the crossing with what the Pentagon classified as routine defensive repositioning. The Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group, operating in the Philippine Sea, altered course northward. 2 B-52 Stratofortress bombers launched from Guam on a mission that Indo-Pacific Command described as previously scheduled. But there was a layer we had not yet reached. The United States maintains According to the annual report to Congress on the military power of China, for 2025, approximately 380 Tomahawk and LRASM missiles positioned aboard ships and submarines within operational range of the Taiwan Strait at any given moment. The deterrence balance in that 180-kilometer corridor involved, that week, 3 war navies, more than 1,200 combined missiles, and 2 nuclear powers on opposing sides. This is not merely a regional crisis. It is the first real test of who controls the most important maritime artery of the 21st century. And the outcome of that test will redraw the map of global power for decades. The Liaoning's crossing of the Taiwan Strait did not open a military chapter. It opened a civilizational one. The question that hung suspended over those 180 kilometers of water was not whether Beijing would repeat the operation, but when and whether the next time the strike group crossing the strait will be led by the Fujian, with electromagnetic catapults, 5th-generation fighters, and the operational capability the Liaoning never possessed. Taipei, Tokyo, and Washington must now answer a question that admits no ambiguity. What will they do when the crossing ceases to be symbolic provocation and becomes the operational routine of a navy growing faster than any other on the planet? The board had been overturned. If this analysis brought into perspective what is at stake across those 180 kilometers, share it with those who need to understand why the Taiwan Strait may define the next decade, and subscribe to follow the developments ahead. The next crossing was already being planned.